does the Bible tell us where the Antichrist is going to come from? Some people think he's coming from America or Europe or Romania or any other country people think about. But what does the Bible actually say? Because it tells us pretty much the general vicinity of where the Antichrist will come out of. Join us today as Joel Richardson explains where he's going to come from and why it is, because it all has to do with an end time scenario, and it's all Israel-centric and the countries that surround Israel. So join us today to see what he has to say about this. From your books, it's clear that you believe the Antichrist will be a Muslim. So talk about why you believe he will come from the Middle East and not Rome.
Yeah. So, obviously I've written a few books on this, and I could do a whole weekend just talking about this. But in short, the Bible is, and always has been, this book, and this, I always make this point, and Americans sometimes get it. This book is not primarily about America. It's primarily, first and foremost, the context is Jerusalem, Israel, and the Middle East. That's where everything happens. That's where everything culminates. This is an Israel-centric book. So, and that means there's a geographic context to all of these battles and so forth. So when we look at the words of the prophets, every single verse throughout the entire Bible that names of the nations that will be under the Antichrist, that will invade Israel, every single one is either a North African or Middle Eastern nation, a Muslim majority nation, the nations that immediately surround Israel. And there's actually not a single verse anywhere that mentions a non-Muslim majority nation in the context of either following the Antichrist, invading Israel, or specifically being judged when the Lord returns. He names names, nations, regions, tribes. Every single time, it's a Muslim majority nation. And it says the Antichrist will also come from that region, the sort of Turkey, Iraq, Syria area. So, that's kind of the foundation for it. It's just like the Bible says he's going to come from this part of the world, not Europe. Does that mean Europe won't be involved? It doesn't mean that. What I always say is where the Bible is silent, we need to be really careful. But I could get into the history of how the church has come to believe that many of the prophecy teachers, I think, wrongly believe that Rome is where he comes from. It's just a misunderstanding of really a couple verses, Daniel 2, Daniel 7, Daniel 9:26. Through misinterpreting those couple of texts and ignoring all of these other literal, clear, direct passages, so many of them where the prophets name names, we end up with this very European sort of perspective. And it makes much more sense understanding the Israel centricity, that it's Israel's neighbors that ultimately invade Israel. And yes, European nations could be involved, but the Bible never says which ones. And so we need to be very, very careful there. And there's so much more that we could talk about. You can just look at the theology of Islam and go, yeah, that pretty much lines up exactly with what the Bible describes with regard to the religion, the belief system, of the Antichrist. Like it says, we're beheaded in the last days, right? Do you think that Pope Francis and his crew are going to start beheading us? Or do you think Muslims would be more likely to do so? You see what I'm saying? That's actually part of their history and this type of thing. So it fits hand in glove is the point. And there's been different people that have believed this down through history, but I've probably been the most comprehensive in laying out the case for this. If you want to read more about that, my book, Mideast Beast, so you've got Islamic Antichrist out there, lays out what Islam is expecting for the last days, and I show that their prophetic messianic figures that they're looking for are basically the Antichrist and the false prophet, like to a T. To the point where even Muslims believe that their Messiah figure, they call him the Mahdi or the Mahdi, they believe that he will come, cause Islam to be the supreme religion throughout the earth. He'll rule the world from the Temple Mount for 7 years. You go, that's what the Bible says about the Antichrist. You go, yeah, that's the guy they're waiting for. That's in their prophecies. So So I deal with that in Islamic Antichrist. If you've never read it, it is a good book. In Mideast Beast, I work through all the biblical texts. Daniel 2, Daniel 7, Ezekiel 38, 39, et cetera, and lay out the scriptural case to back that up. So if you're into that sort of thing, you'll like the books. That's a joke as an author when someone sends you a book and they go, "Can you endorse this for me?" And you're like, "I like this guy, but I just think this stuff's crazy." Is you just say, "If you're into this stuff, you'll love this book." And it's just Joel Richardson. And people are like, "Oh, okay, well, that sounds good." Anyway.
I'm teaching through Genesis right now, and we're just at the whole Ishmael, Isaac thing, and I put up last week your map, the one that you do with all the black Islamic nations with Israel in the center, and the first time I ever saw that when you were here, just like my heart just dropped, because I don't think people realize that everyone surrounding Israel is a Muslim nation. Like it just is. It is playing into exactly what you've been talking about.
Jesus is coming back to rule the world from a very specific city. It's called Jerusalem. He's going to restore the throne of his father David. The Torah, the law of God, will go forth to the nations. The ways of the Lord will be taught. The knowledge of God will cover the earth as the waters cover the sea. Satan knows this. And we're waiting for some new religion, like just one day Oprah is going to send out the email and everyone's going to sign up and convert. Oh, there's the one world religion. No, Satan has been extending his spidery fingers around the throne of David for the past 1,400 years. It's already right there. It's right in front of us. And it's growing rapidly.
Yeah. Okay, hope that gave you a little bit more understanding. I'll put a link below for our End Times Timeline Conference if you want to watch it in its entirety. If you want to get a hold of Joel or listen to his stuff or get his books, you can go to joelstrumpet.com. So, all right, we'll see you next week.